Hello, Gareth here and welcome to this watercolour lesson. So it's January in Japan and it's really cold. That's why I'm wearing this woolly hat and all these clothes. Over there is an electric fan, but it's not producing that much heat. Anyway, despite all of that, I'm very happy because I've just done a lovely watercolour painting, which I'm about to show you. So here it goes. Ta-da! So this is what we're going to paint in this lesson today. Now I've done my best to make it as simple as possible and I hate it when that happens, when you make videos and you suddenly just forget everything. Anyway, I've done my best to make it as simple as possible. And this place is called Inukai, and it's in Oita prefecture, Japan. And I visited this beautiful place last year and I had a lovely time, and I did several good paintings actually from that one trip. So the next thing you're going to see is me doing a digital painting of this scene. This is the original scene, by the way. Okay, so I'm going to do a very simple digital drawing to help show you how to simplify this painting. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make a square. So hopefully I've not got any strange colours. Just a minute. And here we go. So here's our square. This is going to be our paper. Okay, so then the next thing I'm going to do is think about where the horizon line is. So it's roughly, if we look at the photo, just below the middle of the paper. So about here. So here we go. Okay, might do that again. So about, oops. I'm not very good at this. About there. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is draw the skyline. So we look carefully, it comes down like this, just very roughly. Then we've got this bit, and that comes down, and then there's this bit here. So we've got a distant mountain over here, so roughly let's draw that. Very simple. Then we've got this dark green bunch of fir trees, I guess, and I'm not quite sure how that goes, but roughly like that, just roughly, that's that area there. And then here we've got like highlights. So all I'm doing is just suggesting them and trying to keep it very, very simple. That will do. Okay, so then the next thing is we've got a big bushy bunch of conifers or whatever here. Something like that. And it comes down like this, the shadow area, yeah. And then on the other side we've got some kind of bush. I'm going to make it a bit nicer. Okay, what's next? Then here we've got this curving line. It's basically just a line. And then we've got some grass here. There's a tree here, but I'm not going to do that. So get rid of that. Oh, that. Keep it simple. And then there's another line there, and then also on this side it actually is higher, I think, on the right hand side, but I'm not going to bother too much with that because I think it's a bit confusing. So we've got this edge, then we've got a huge bush here. I'm not going to do a huge bush, just a small one. I don't like the shape of that, so this is only a rough thing, but I'm getting fussy. Then we've got the stream. Now I have to look very carefully at that. So it's a bit like, let's begin with this side, zigzagging, isn't it? Oh, wrong. Begin again. Zigzag like that, then like that, and then there's a bit like that, and something like that, roughly, yeah. And then it goes off like that. Then let's do the other side. So try and make this as simple as possible. Something like that. And then I'm just looking for the shadowy areas. So here, I'm not going to draw that though. And then we've got big one here and here, and then up here. Then on the other side, there's quite a few, isn't there? Keep it simple. That's the challenge, to keep it as simple as possible. And then here there's a shadow. But I think that's it. I think that's it. I might just do this. This will help me later. And then I guess I can just erase these lines. Don't have to, but it'll look nicer in the end. So we've done the basic drawing, yeah? So just keep it really simple. Now we're going to think about the tones in the picture. We'll begin with the sky. The sky is just going to be white. It was a super bright day. Then this distant mountain, I'm going to do a light blue colour. So let me get my colours, blue, and then let's move towards the white, very pale. Maybe that will do. Then let's fill this in. Oh, it worked. Now this area, this is a very dark green colour, but it's distant, so it needs to be a grey green colour. So we're going to go dark, and then we're going to go more towards the grey. Can you see that? So maybe that will do. Let's hope so. Yep. And then here, when I paint it, I'll do a light green colour first for the highlights, and then after it's dried I'll do the shadow areas. But in this software it's easier to do the dark bit first and then the light highlights after. The light highlights. Okay, the highlights second. Hope that makes sense. So this needs to be a bit more greener than this because it's closer. So we'll use this original colour and just move a bit more towards that. Now hopefully, yeah, to be honest, it's not, maybe a bit like that. Okay, maybe that will do. And here we go. Will this work? Oh yeah, perfect. Oh, that was lucky. So there we go. We've got our 3 tones roughly. Then we've got this beautiful light green, yellowy green here and here, yeah? So this is a little bit more tricky to do. I need to look for a more yellowy colour. Something like that. Maybe something like that. Yeah, I think it's roughly like that. And then here we go. Oh yeah, it's a bit too much perhaps, but there we go. It's roughly we got the right colour, and that wants to be light green. This one is a more of a yellow ochre colour, so this kind of colour. And there we go, roughly we've got everything. Now I'm just going to do a little bit of shading, so I'll begin with this and I'll just check the colour. So then what I'll do is I'll make a slightly darker version of it, and then I'm going to get a brush. Where's my brush? I've got a brush down here. Here it is, I think. And let's have a look what this looks like. So I think it needs to be darker, even darker. So there we go. So there, there, and then around here, a little bit dark. We've got the sun over here and it's shining down here, so I should do these trees first. And if I cross hatch, it gets even darker, which is nice. And then there's a little bit here, and then here. Oh, I forgot that, but there you go. Doesn't really matter. There, and there. And here, and here. Roughly something like that. And there's a few more marks, but I don't want to do too many. So roughly like that, and then over here, that. Okay, and then we're going to go a little bit darker. So I'm going to take this colour and go a little bit darker, and maybe slightly smaller brush, and just put in some darks, just roughly. And here too, just put in a few little darks at the bottom, and here too. So like something like that, yeah. And then let's do this water area. So here we've got like a very dark green colour. Maybe it's a bit more green than this. Oh, that's good. That's what I wanted. And then we've got a little bit of blue. So let's get the blue, a bit light colour. We've got some of that here, and then here, and maybe a bit up here. That'll do. Then we've got highlights for this hill in the distance, so let's do that. So first of all, let's get that colour, then let's make it lighter, and let's see what this looks like. So I can't really get rid of these black lines, but it doesn't matter because this is not meant to be like a finished painting. It's more like just helping me to understand how I'm going to do the painting. Okay, like that. Maybe that green is a bit too light. There we go, but that's okay. Just keep it simple. And there's one final thing. I just get this, where is it? This little white bit, yellow. That was bugging me. Okay, so we can see it beginning to come together, and the final thing is the rocks. So we want a kind of browny colour, a dark brown colour, like that maybe. Yeah, a bit grey, a bit more towards the grey. And then I'm doing this quite quickly. No, it needs to be darker than that, doesn't it? It needs to really stick out. That's a bit better. And it's got a bit of a reflection. And then another one there. And then up here we've got another one. And then up here another one. And then there another one. Oh, just do that. And there we go. I think that's pretty good. I could always, no, I'm best to leave it, I think. So roughly it's going to be something like that. Okay, so let's do the real painting. So before I start, very important thing for beginners, always have a proper layout of your materials and stick to it. So this is my layout. I've got tissue, water bucket, rag, my palette with my paints organized from warm to cool, roughly. And then I've got my paper, and it's on this piece of plastic that keeps it tilted. On my right hand side, I've got my brushes. I think I'm mostly using just these two brushes, maybe even just this one actually. I might possibly use this one. So this is an oval brush, pointed oval. So I really recommend it, it's very good. And also I've got a spray bottle. I often use that, but not today, I think. Okay, so very important to have a really good layout and stick to it. So let's begin. So what I'm going to do is basically a frame, big frame. You don't have to. And then once again, think about the horizon line. So it's about 40%, right? Just below the middle. So we've got about 60% here, 40% here, kind of ratio. Then we've got this coming down here. So I'm being a little bit more careful. Wow, it's really windy outside. Okay, and then we've got that. And then here we've got something like this. I'm doing it very simple. And then with this comes down like this. And then we've got something here like that. And then over here, this continues like that. And also there's a little here. I think that's mostly it. Then here, I need eraser. So I use this kneadable eraser. It's very soft on the paper. Doesn't damage the surface so much. And I've got here that bushy bamboo. Well, it's a lot of bamboo trees together. And then here, got this bush. And then there's a line here. And then a really big bush here, but I'm not going to do a super big bush. Then there's a tree here that I'm going to leave out. And then we've got this curving bank. Then the border of a field here. Okay, and then I think we're ready for the most difficult part to draw, which is this stream. There's a real wide area there. And then we've got a few big rocks in the water. I'm not drawing all of them, just a few. And then there are a few shadowy areas. So it's very important to be minimal and just don't draw too much. Roughly something like that. Okay, so let's begin painting them. So we've done our drawing. It's fairly nice. It's a little bit more complicated than I wanted. I think I should have tried to have simplified it even more, but there we go. So let's do this bit here. So this is cerulean blue. Ooh. And I'm going to add, am I going to add something to that? Maybe a touch of, just a touch of yellow ochre. And I think that will do. Quite watery. So this is really going to be a watercolor sketch, yeah? Okay, so we've done that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is this area while this is drying. And I can speed that up by just doing this. Okay, so this is a green, but it's a pale green. So I'm going to use this cerulean blue again, and maybe a bit more yellow ochre. And I think that's the colour we want, but we want a lot more. And I think that's quite good, but I need a lot more. It's quite a big area. And I'm going to use this flat brush to apply it because it will cover the area quicker. Okay, here we go. And it's fairly simple. I'm using the corner of the brush to do around here. And go up like that. Okay, have to be careful here, especially if this has become quite dry. So, oh, there we go. I think we're safe. So I think that tone is pretty good. Just cerulean blue and yellow ochre. Same mix as this, but a lot more cerulean blue. No, sorry, a lot more yellow ochre. Goodness me. Okay, let's leave it to dry. It has now dried, and I'm going to do this bit, and then I'm going to do some shadowing for this. So use this brush. Now this is a tricky colour, so I'm going to start with the cerulean blue, then some of the yellow ochre. Ooh. And more, and then I'm going to add a touch of red. So this is Quinacridone Magenta. I don't know how you pronounce it. Now I think I've gone wrong with the cerulean blue. So let's try Phthalo blue, and this is yellow shade, and then a touch of this red. Begin over here. And then a bit of yellow ochre. So that's too purple, too much red. Oh, that's a bit more like the colour I want. So it does take a bit of time. Yep, that's it. And then water it down because it is in the distance, so it's a little bit faded. Let's just check it. Oh, actually, maybe a bit thicker than that. And here we go. So, like that, and then do a few up and down marks. Maybe not too bad. And then just fill in this. And let's not worry too much. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then at the end, just do that. I think that works okay tonally. Now let's do this. We can almost use the same colour as that, but maybe a bit more intense. So perhaps that means a bit more red, I think. So the blue and the yellow, and then a bit more this red. I've got some here. I can add that. Okay. Maybe more yellow ochre though. Give it a green hint or cast. One more. And a bit more of this red. Maybe that'll be okay. So we've got a lot of space to cover here. So here we go. Like that. I think I've got the tones right. And then down here. Give that a rough edge. Whoops. Maybe I'm going a bit too fast, but it's a sketch, so I don't want to get too serious about it. Oh, maybe that will do. Yep. Okay, and then this area, just do some tiny bits first, and then do some bigger bits. Okay, and then something like that. And I think that's pretty good. Okay, so let's leave that to dry. Okay, this has now dried, and I'm going to do the fields here. So that needs to be a yellowy green colour. So I think this is my Imidazoline yellow. So I'm going to get a lot of that because it's quite a big area. And a touch of Cerulean blue. And I want to have lots of white gaps in this. So if I can achieve that, I'll be happy, like that. And then I have to be careful not to paint the river yellow. Oh, I did a bit there. Okay. And yeah, it's not too bad. And I think we've got a nice contrast there. And this bamboo thing here, this is a browny colour, so I'm just going to use yellow ochre for that. Okay. And then that will do. I'm not too happy with this colour. I don't know why. Maybe it's the highlight bit. It needed to be a bit lighter. I might play around with that later. The problem is this is quite cheap watercolour paper, and to paint in a sketchy way, a few light layers is no problem. But once you do like a third glaze or a third layer of paint, then it can go a bit funny and not look quite so good. With better quality papers that tend to be thicker, you can normally get away with lots of layers. Okay, leaving it to dry and back soon. This has now dried, and I'm going to do the shading now for this, which is maybe one of the most difficult parts. So for that, I'm going to begin with maybe yellow ochre. Whoa. And a touch of cerulean blue. Maybe more. Okay, maybe let's try this blue. And a touch of this. And I think that'll be okay. And then later I'll use an even darker colour with blue, red and yellow ochre. But for now, hopefully this will do. And fairly quickly, okay, and then there's some shadow here, and just use a little bit of water there, soften it, and the same here. Whoops. Okay, so I've done this painting quite a few times now, so I'm quite familiar with where a lot of the shadows go. Not all, but quite a few of them. So I can paint this fairly quickly, and that is important. And I think that's enough. Just a few tiny little bits. Oh, it's dark down there. Okay, and then it's moving on to the dark stuff. The dark stuff. So Phthalo blue, Quinacridone Magenta, what a fantastic name. Yellow ochre. And then we've got something that's kind of greyish. It's a browny grey. Bit more of this. And yeah, I think that will do. Just make it a little bit more watery, and then Now you have to be fairly quick doing all of this because you want this first shadow to be still wet so that you get this soft effect. And so if you're not very quick, then it's best to do this side first, both shadings, you know, both the light green shadow and the dark green shadow, and then move over to this side and repeat. That will be the best way. Maybe I should have done that too, because I think it's drying out pretty quickly. Maybe still okay. And I'm squinting so that I'm able to see if it looks enough, and I think that's enough, and that's beginning to come together. That doesn't look quite right. I think I'm going to have to go down like that so we can't see the stream there. And then just a few little touches. Sometimes this brush gives like bird feet marks, and I don't think they look so good, so I have to be a bit careful. They don't look like that, and just tiny bits there. These little tiny bits really help. So the sun is coming from this direction. That tree is a little bit bad. I'm going to have to do a little bit of the lighter shadow on that one to make it look a bit better, but it's a bit strange, isn't it? There you go. Nothing perfect. Okay, I think that's done. That works. Okay, use this dark mix then for here. And I want to get some lovely thin lines if possible, and then some here and up here, and maybe that's enough. Hopefully they're horizontal. Then let's wipe up my mess here. Okay, a touch of cerulean blue. Wipe, wipe, wipe. Wipe, wipe, wipe. Hopefully I'll get a little bit of a dry brush effect. Yep, that's what I wanted. And there too. Look at that sparkle. Beautiful. Very simple, but nice. Okay, so I'm happy with all of that. And I think that might even be the picture done. No, I've got to do the rocks. I'll do them in a minute. What I'm going to do next is a bit of a risk, especially with this cheap paper. I'm going to do a light yellow wash over this because I think this highlight needs to be stronger. So for that, I need a big brush. So where is my big brush? Just a minute. Can't find it. Oh, yes I can. Oh, thank goodness. Here it is. And I think this green looks quite nice, but there's not enough of it. I hope this works. Let's try. It's quite watery. Let's hope. So you really don't want to do this if you can help it, especially on cheap paper. What do you think? Is it looking better? I think so. This is too cool and it looks too distant. So there we go. Ooh, I got a little bit of whatever it is. I don't know. Goes a little bit funny. And I shouldn't do that, but I want to get rid of a few marks. That's cheap paper, yeah. That's what happens. or maybe it's just shifting pigment around, but I still think it looks much better now, and the whole thing has basically come to life. So I just need to let this dry a little bit more, and then I'm going to come in and do here. I perhaps could, I want to keep this simple, but I could come in here with some dark stuff, yeah, dark paint, and it might look better, but I don't want to give you too much. I want to try and keep this as simple as possible. Okay, but I did do that anyway. Anything to get a good painting. And I think also here doesn't look quite right. That looks a little bit better. Okay, let's leave that now to dry, but it's looking pretty good. Now it has mostly dried, maybe not up here. I think it was a good idea to do that light yellow wash over there, despite a few marks that I've got. It just looks more correct. Okay, and now I'm going to do some stones down here using my pointed oval brush. So basically I'm going to use my three favourites, the Phthalo blue, the Quinacridone Magenta, and some yellow ochre. Mix that up, and I want a kind of browny grey colour, and I think that's pretty much what I want. And it's important not to paint too many stones. Okay, I think that will do. Maybe one more there. I think that's enough. Then I'm going to get my fine liner brush. So one of the most important things is that you look at when I use my water and when I use my rag, because I noticed that a lot of beginner painters don't use their rag at all sometimes, and it's really important that you do use it. It's like a brake, and it stops you putting too much water onto the paper. And if you do put too much water onto the paper and it's onto some other wet paint that is slightly dry, then you're going to get something terrible. Or it's on wet paper, then it's just gonna splurge out and be completely uncontrollable. So this rag is so important. I might do a few lines like this because I think it looks nice. And I think that's more or less it. I could leave it like that, but I'm going to get some white paint and just do like a white rim around some of these rocks, because I think it's really going to make it very punchy, powerful, visually powerful. Sometimes just these little final touches can really make the painting shine and bring it to life. The only problem is when you do it on video, it's like, do I stop the video now and wait again, or shall I just go ahead and do it even though it's probably a bit too wet? So what I'm going to do is try and give it as much time as possible by doing a few highlights in other areas. So I've got my white, I've got a touch of yellow. Ooh, too much. That might work. And then let's do a few highlights. I can make that look nicer, that bush, and I can use this here. I love using white paint. It's like cheating, but it looks good. Most of the time. And then here we can do a few nice little edges. Okay, and then maybe here. If I don't like it, I'll just scrape it off with my fingernail. Okay, and maybe there. Get rid of that line. So I think that's it. Now let's try and do these rocks. And I think this colour will be okay, but we'll find out. So it's white with a touch of yellow in it. That one's a bit wet. Okay, I think it looks like quite a nice painting. Maybe it's a little bit fussier than I wanted, but I still think there's something nice about it. Okay, so there we go, finished. And now for review time. So the sky, there's not a lot to be said about that because I didn't do anything. So I think these mountain areas look pretty good. So maybe I got this highlight colour wrong, I'm not sure. Or I should have used better quality paper because I'm not too happy with these little marks. Although they're not too bad and they do add some texture. But who knows, maybe I'm just rationalising. But I think overall that's quite good. And this area I'm very happy with. I think the trees look pretty good, or bushes, and the fields look good, and the colour. Maybe I could have done these shadows better. Yeah, but that's always the case, I think. I'm very happy with the stream, and the rocks are pretty nice. So there we go. So if I was doing this painting again, is there anything that I would do differently? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think so. Just maybe use better quality paper. I might possibly think about going over this with water and softening it. But I could also, especially with this cheap paper, get more of these marks, and I don't really want that. So there you go. So that's the end of this watercolour lesson. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you actually have a go. Please get those brushes and paints out and try, because if you don't, then these watercolour lessons or these watercolour tutorials don't really mean that much, and it is so much fun. As you saw with me with the digital painting, I'm not very good, but I will continue And I know that in a couple of years' time, I will be pretty good. And maybe in 6 or 7 years' time, I'll be really good. But it does take some time. And the final thing I want to say is, if there is a scene that you would like me to paint, then please let me know in the comments below. Now, I'm not promising I will do that, but I will certainly have a look. And if it's something I think I'm capable of painting and that I'm a little interested in, then I will have a go. So that's all. I hope you like the beautiful sky behind me. It's quite a cold day, but I'm having a really wonderful and very refreshing walk. So I'll be back next month with another watercolor lesson. Bye for now and happy painting.